Hello, we are on, and welcome to the Made for Socials podcast. Gotta say, it is now the Made for Socials podcast. It's no longer the Made for Video podcast because I tend to find within the podcast that they were getting a bit more broad. So it's now the Made for Socials podcast. Anyway, I'm with Margaret Bell, and I've been trying to pin Margaret down for ages to get her on the podcast because I've been really interested in what she does. Now I'm going to read out her description, and obviously, if you're not familiar with Margaret, you're going to get familiar in this podcast. But Margaret is the Wonder Woman of hormonal health, helping you take charge of your body and holistic performance through the power of harnessing hormonal balance. Is that an accurate description?
I'd say so. Thanks very much for that.
I can see the Wonder Woman sign in the background, so
yeah.
It's like Wonder Woman, like a big.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, crikey, I'm a kid from the mid 70s to mid 80s-ish. So yeah, absolutely she. And I'm talking about no disrespect to the new Wonder Woman, but if you looked at the old series now, it's just like, wow, she was, definitely the way forward for many women.
Oh yeah. I remember her as a kid. She was like big crush, like teenage boy crush.
She still even looks fantastic today. It's like,
well, she must be well into her 50s now.
Yeah. Oh, above.
Really?
I think she's into her 60s or 70s by now.
Is she? Yeah. Wow. Anyway, we'll probably dive into this through the podcast. We digress a little bit. For anyone in my audience who might not be aware of what you do and who you are, introduce yourself.
Yeah. As you say, I'm the Wonder Woman of hormonal health, but doesn't really stop there, to be quite honest with you. I predominantly work with women, but I can work with men as well because we all do have hormones and they all affect our mood, our physicality, even down to literally how we sleep, how we react to different things. It's all to do with hormones, but also they feed very much into how our gut actually works as well. And that's the main connection of what I do. I'm a gut health specialist and a hormonal health specialist to work on both sides. Better on your gut health, which also improves your hormonal health, so you can sleep better, you can, operate better. Your mood swings aren't as intense, and your confidence is back as well. So that's about it in a nutshell.
So good. Would you describe yourself as a coach?
I'd sit in between both as coach and mentor, because quite a lot of obviously what I do is advising people where they are at, how they can get better. And although there's some coaching aspect in that, especially, which I don't think I mentioned, I'm an anti-diet coach as well. That side of it is a lot of coaching because it's delving into people's habits and behaviours around food. But when it comes to the gut health and the hormonal health, it's a lot more to do with mentoring for people to understand definitely where they're at, but then take the journey with me to improvement.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really want to dive into the anti-diet stuff. I'm really interested in that. Being from a fitness background myself, I don't know if you know this, I was a PT, then an online coach, then started getting into video, then got into social media. But if we take it back to the start, what made you get into that space in the first place?
Take it right back to the start. I started cooking with my mum at the age of 3.
Really?
And I might fill up with this because she's a huge influence on what I do. I'm originally from Newcastle, and probably the Geordie twang, and my brother and my dad used to go to the match on a Saturday, in the 80s, Kevin Keegan, when Newcastle, well, I know Newcastle a lot better now, but I don't follow them. But this is when they were really blooming good.
You're talking to an Everton fan here, Margaret. It's
Oh,
things, yeah.
well, they were really good. But me and my mum used to be in the kitchen on a Saturday, and that's how we really bonded. She started teaching me to make cakes and things like that at a young age, and it progressed from then. I can remember I was about 10 or 11, and I nearly passed out doing this. I was making a Valentine's meal for my parents, and for some bizarre reason, I got into my head that I would make them stuffed hearts. Gross. But that's how much I was progressing on by the age of 10, that I was able to do like a 3-course meal and stuff like that, even though I nearly passed out by doing it. But I still carried on cooking and still carried on, trying different things, even curries and things like that, which my dad loved. My mum, not so. And got to, 14. I was bullied at school. Got a nickname Thundersize at school from someone who I thought were my best mates. Turns out, obviously, they weren't, and that name went round the whole of the year. So I took it on myself to lose quite a lot of weight. Went down to I'm not much height difference now, but I'm 5'7". I was about 7 stone. Would have been classed as clinically anorexic, but back then we're talking the early 90s, so it wasn't really too much recognised.
Was this like the early Kate Moss like supermodel era?
I got a feeling it was even before that, to be quite honest with you.
You remember, like, I remember, like, I was born mid-80s, and I remember, like, sort of mid-90s, it was like Playboy, supermodel, Cindy Crawford, Kate Moss, like, like the typical supermodel style. And when I think back now, it was very influential on girls specifically, really.
Yeah.
But not like there was nothing like it is now. There's no attention like it is now. It was literally that was like
we're definitely talking a little bit before then. We're probably talking about 1990, 91 at the very latest. So at the age of around about 15 and a half, my mum was diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune condition. And it had a very good effect on me by moving me away from experience anorexia. Got very heavily involved with studying about the immune system, which continued on to eventually gut health. We're talking before the internet, so books weren't exactly great at that point, but progressed once the internet came about. I was able to read different studies about it, and my dad passed away in my mid-20s. That had a huge effect. I turned to binge eating, literally to see if I could fill the hole that he left. Never worked. It's still there today. And moved down to Liverpool about a year and a half-ish later to get away what was going on in Newcastle. Experienced orthorexia in my 30s. Don't know whether you know much about orthorexia.
Yeah, I do actually. I do.
And got to my 40s, was married at the time, and the marriage just wasn't, we'd gone our separate ways. I, at the time, was head of 3 departments within an event company. We were dealing with large-scale events, large-scale festivals. I'd worked for people like Creamfields, Liverpool Sound City, Ting the Park, things like that. We just naturally drifted apart. So I initiated the divorce, which I think a lot happens with women around about that age. Felt humongous guilt, which transposed into depression. And my bosses at the time, because I was in quite a high position, didn't know what to do with me. Didn't know how to deal with what I was going through, how they would then have to put people in place. So very kindly, they let me go and kind of got me out of the way, paid me off, so I was kind of left with depression, moved out the house, and yeah, didn't know what I was going to do. Good friends saw me literally fall down a hole, got me to go to see a counsellor, and within about, I'd say about 8 or 9 months, had a decision to make. Do I want to go back to the events industry or go for something different? And I literally went for something different. Trained as an anti-diet coach, got gut health qualifications, food psychology qualification, and literally just started coaching a little bit by little bit, because I wasn't too confident in leaving full-time work. Didn't think who the hell would listen to me. So built up that coaching, and my mum passed away, God, May 2020, and that was just the fucking huge catalyst for me. It's like, you know what, go for it now, or it's never going to happen again. So I went for it, getting extra qualifications in things like culinary medicine, and here I am today.
I love it. Do you know what? Like I'm obsessed with storytelling at the moment. Like obsessed. And in storytelling, the bigger it's like in a great story, there's always a hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger the hero, the bigger the dragon or the monster they've got to overcome.
Yeah.
And that monster in people's lives, your life in this case, is all that stuff you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're the hero for a lot of other people who might go through that.
Yeah.
And that's when I see like coaching actually is, as a coach, like my background's coaching and now a bit of mentoring, consultancy, but like I look at it and go, I am just the same person as my clients are now, but 2 years ahead of them, or 3 years ahead of them, or 5 years ahead of them. Like, I've just walked that path a little bit earlier. That's it. There's no special thing that I'm preaching or anything. Other than the fact that I've learned all this stuff over time. Like, that's it.
Definitely. And it's the stuff that you learn, the experiences that you have that definitely help within that. And you're absolutely right. It's just being that little bit more further forward than them, but it doesn't mean that they can't get to meet you where you're at.
Exactly. In theory, all these people who you coach now, in a few years' time from now, will have learned all them lessons, probably in a shorter learning curve than you've had to learn them, because they've got someone there. Because it's that old saying, isn't it? You can learn from your mistakes, which is great, but it's quicker to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just more productive, right? So hopefully in like a couple of years' time, these people who might have been in the same position as you were a while ago will now be in the position you are now, and they'll be able to help more people. And that's the impact, right? Because it trickles down, and it's that over time. That's cool, man. So I remember when I first got into the fitness industry, I got made redundant. So when I left school, I started as an architectural technician for a housing company. I was going to be an architect, and it was great. But what I quickly realised was it's a great job. Like I respect architects massively, but it just wasn't for me. Like being in an office, not being too active. A lot of it's kind of trigonometry, maths, calculating angles, all that kind of thing.
Hard stuff.
And it wasn't fulfilling me. But then in 2007, 2008, in the recession, I made redundant. And at 21, being on a decent salary for a 21-year-old at that point in time, probably a little bit above average to what my mates were making, for example. And because I'd been there 5 years, I got paid off like a month and a half, which was like $3,500 at the time. Like a month and a half's wages. which was like, to me, it was like, oh, sound, I got this big lump sum and I've got no job and I can do what I want. But I quickly realised that there was no other avenues to go down in that industry at that point. And then, like, the more I thought about it, the more I didn't want to go back to it. But weirdly, in that process, that summer, I just kind of lived on that $3,500, done a few little bits of work here and there for my dad and stuff, but nothing spectacular. And then decided I'm just going to join the gym. I'm literally, like, I'm putting a bit of weight on, I'm drinking quite a lot, I'm just going to go to the gym. And I didn't have any clue what I was doing. Never lifted a weight in my life, never done any cardio, really, other than football. And that was it. And I remember in the wall, there was like these little pigeonholes with like workouts in. And you were just basically printed off beginners workouts, printed off intermediate and advanced workouts. And he literally just printed off pieces of paper. How it was like a plan for someone, I never know. It was just literally just picked them off the wall in the gym and then followed it. So I started following one of them. And over the course of about 3 weeks, I started getting into it. And I was like, do you know what? They're not the best workouts in the world, but at least I'm doing something structured in some way. and then I remember like growing up, I was like reading all like Men's Health and like Men's Fitness magazine, similar to what you said about like the 90s culture of like women in that industry. It's like the same thing with men, right? It's like big jack dudes on the front of a magazine, ripped up.
This is how you're supposed to.
Yes, like spray tanned, shiny white teeth, all that stuff. And I was like, I'm going to look like that. I'm going to look exactly like that. Never did. But I got myself in a little bit better shape. But I remember vividly one day there was like this PT. I don't know if he was having a bad day. I don't even know who he is, to be honest, so I'm not calling anyone else here. But he just looked disinterested in his clients. And I was looking at it, and I was on the treadmill at the time. I was looking at it going, I could do a better job than that. And my money from the job was like swindling down. I think I had about $2,000 left of it. And I thought, you know what? I went home, Googled it, and I was like, how to become a PT. I'm going to get into this industry. That was on the Thursday. On the Monday, I started, and I'd done it for 8 weeks, full time, every day, no job. Just kept going to Liverpool, getting qualified every day, Monday to Friday. And 8 weeks later, I was qualified. That was it.
Wow.
I had no idea how to PT anyone. I had no idea how to coach anyone. Literally, I just got on a whim. My mum and dad were like thinking, "You've left this industry, like doing artistics to be a PT. What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah. So, hang on. This was something.
From then on, from like I was 21 at this point, and then I was 10, 22, and then I'm 37 now. So this is like 15 years ago. And then from that point on, I literally just said to myself, I've just got to learn as much as I humanly can. Because I can't coach or mentor anyone. One thing I did know, I can't coach or mentor anyone if I don't know anything. I need to know something. I need to get some experience under my belt. So for like the next 2 years, all I've done was like invest in courses and da-da-da-da-da. I think it's a lesson there. Like, you've just got to kind of like, there is a point where you can
just
help
got to get out there and do it.
You just got to get out there and fucking do it, yeah. And then every point in time since, like every time my back's been against the wall in some way, exactly what you described, it was kind of like, I'm going to do something about this now. I'm not gonna feel sorry for myself. I'm not gonna fucking make excuses or blame anyone else for the shit situation I'm in. I'm just gonna fucking do it. And then like that served me well over time, actually. So I suppose from that, from the point of like, obviously you mentioned 2020, your mum passed away. From that point on, how's it sort of like transpired into what you're doing now? In terms of not just your coaching, but also your like sort of personal growth within that as well.
Wow. I'd say it's flipping heck. I've learned so many different things. had one or two coaches that I definitely wouldn't go back to. Learned a lot of lessons myself and started to trust myself as well. Because I think that's a huge thing when you see so many different people doing different things, and the world that we live in now when it comes to the likes of influencers, whatever's on the social media. I'm in a position now where I'm quite happy with who I am, which is a flaming huge thing, I think, but also happy with what I'm doing and how I do it. I see a lot of people out on social media literally pounding it, and I'm like, this isn't me. I'm much more of a person who does come on social media for different things, but you utilising other things as well, like blogs. I'm very much going to start utilising YouTube, so stepping away from the social media aspects in that situation, because what I do, I'm very much happy being that slightly more quieter person.
Yeah, I love that. Do you know what? I think sometimes because this podcast is generally a social media podcast, so I really love getting perspectives on this. Like growing up in sort of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, even into the 2000s, before pre-social media. Do you think social media has changed us, or do you think social media has exposed us for what we already were?
Oh, flipping heck. That's a very good question. I feel to some extent it has had some effect, has some change, especially, and I know probably people bring this up time and time again, the younger generation don't know anything but social media, and that in a way scares the shit out of me. If you took social media away from them, what would they do?
Yeah,
which is
totally.
I think is a little bit of sad state of affairs, to be quite honest with you, because you walk down the street now, and not that I do this, but flipping heck, when you were a teenager or a young 20-year-old, you used to catch people's eyes, and that is how you flirted. These days everyone's on a mobile phone. You don't even get that catching people's eyes when they're out, or having that initial just spark in your belly or whatever. It's just like, where is that gone, for one? So
it's so true that it is so true that I remember my dad actually told me that he met my mum in 1979, I'm going to say.
Wow.
1978, 79. Now, he said at that point in time, they didn't have a house phone. They didn't have a house phone. So that's like how long ago it was. And there was 2 miles roughly between my mum and dad's house, my granddad and nan's house where my mum lived, obviously, and his house where my other nan and granddad lived. And in order to see each other, he would have to walk the 2 miles, knock on the door, and answer to my granddad, who was like this big chested, like sort of old school military army guy. Like he died 20 years ago, but like I remember, like big chested, proud man. And that was just the way it was, right? And like the amount of effort you would have had to put in just to see someone, I suppose, was a lot. Nowadays, you wouldn't even be able to go on a date with someone before scouting them out on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, and it's a swipe right thing. It's like, hang on, that's a person.
Yeah,
that's a bit cruel.
I know. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I like from like being in social media and working in social media now, like we look at this like trolling culture and like sort of bully culture that is on social media now. But I remember back in the 90s when I was in school, that was happening on the playground.
Yeah.
I mean, that was happening in schools. That, off social media, like sees itself come into reality through gossip culture. Like women and men have always gossiped.
Oh God, yeah.
There's always been bullying on the schoolyard. There's always been, nastiness happening. So I don't think social media generally has changed that.
No.
It's just exposed people for
Yeah.
what they already are.
Definitely exposed this, and I think it amplifies it as well, because if you were bullied at school, you could get home and close the door. Now, with social media, the bullies can get to you even when you're at home. So it's like,
Yeah.
it has, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was definitely there, but I think it's been amplified to a higher level these days.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Just digressing a little bit, I'm really interested in this anti-diet culture thing because I stopped PTing in 2019 and stopped online coaching in fitness in 2020, end of 2020. Fully stopped. I was transitioning out a little bit before that, but fully stopped in 2020. So I've had like maybe 4 years where I've not been sort of fully in the circle of it. So I'm really interested in this anti-diet culture movement because I've heard stuff about it from the outside, but can you give me sort of like an insider perspective on that?
Well, how I see it is, one, the amount of people, and I'm not just talking about women, I'm talking about men as well, who have been in yo-yo dieting for years, whether it is, and I will call them out, Weight Watchers, Slimming World, the likes of those who take people down the journey of going on a diet, restricting what they eat, and then getting to a certain point where they get to their desired weight. How they then maintain that is going to be virtually impossible in years to come, because the way that restrictions work is obviously that it can alter your metabolism. So if your metabolism's altered, then the restriction's going to have to be less and less, and you're going to have to restrict more and more and more to keep that weight off, and it is just physically and mentally impossible. So I am not saying that, as an anti-diet coach, to not go down the route of nutrition, but nutrition itself is completely different to a diet. If someone has been on a diet for however many years, they can lose the ability, one, to feel physical hunger because they're told to eat little amounts through the day. They've lost the ability to understand fullness, which is two huge things when it comes to coming out of that culture. When you can feel your own physical hunger, when you can feel your own fullness, you can start trusting your own instinct and your own body a bit more, rather than relying on a diet that tells you when to eat, what to eat. That's how the basics of it actually start.
I love that. So moving forward now, how is it that you really want to help people with that?
Oh God, how do I really want to help people that if I could get rid of Weight Watchers and Slimming World, I'd be a happy woman, because I see them on so many groups of, get slim for summer, get slim for Christmas. I'd like people to help more people step into reality, to understand that diets just literally don't work, and the diet industry is there. It's an industry. It is completely there to demoralize you, to take away your self-confidence, and to put you in a situation where you are relying on a company that doesn't really give a shit about
you. Yeah. I see this firsthand. So must be about 10 years ago now. I was handing out leaflets for the gym I was in, doing a bit of like marketing for them. And this was like before I really knew content and really knew how to make content. We were just handing out flyers basically. And in Slimming World, you're not allowed to hand out flyers that are not Slim and Well related. But there was one girl who'd let me come in and basically drop leaflets off for this in the Slim and Well group.
Mm-hmm.
And I had obviously preconceived ideas of what Slim and Well was.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went in there, it was horrendous. Like, I mean, horrendous. Literally, there was a table with a woman sitting on it with a scale. And there must have been well over 100 women queuing up and literally just taking turns to step on the scale. Some of which were made up, some of which because they'd lost a few pounds that week, some of which were like crying their eyes out because they'd put weight on that week. And it was literally just a conveyor belt, and and they were paying. I think they were paying £7.50 for the fucking privilege.
Yeah, to go on a set of scales, which is just going to completely.
I know. Now, there was one girl in there. Didn't have a clue who she was. I was just kind of sitting at the back. Obviously, I wasn't in Slimming World, and she basically just had a meltdown because she'd put on or she hadn't lost weight in 3 weeks or something. Yeah. She had a full-on meltdown, and her boyfriend was trying to calm down, and I was like, "How can this be right? How can this be right?" It's basically just a conveyor belt of 150 odd people. It must have been half an hour's work for the woman. 750 times, say 150 is it's a lot of money for an hour's work, right?
Yeah.
This must be about 600-700 quid an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no training, there was no education, there was no anything. And I was like, how can it be right? Now, when you look at it from a marketing perspective, which I always do because I'm a marketer, I look at it and go, the ethics of it are totally, totally wrong. 100%. But why do people keep going? Because people know this, really. People aren't daft. They know this stuff. If you look at my auntie, she goes to Slimming World, and I've educated her so much over the last 10-15 years of what she needs to do, but she still goes.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm thinking, why is that the case? Why do they still keep going to that? And I think the reason is, and you can obviously give me your advice on this, I think it's community.
Mm-hmm.
I think community is so powerful, because if you see Julie and Lorna and Becky who are going to Slimming World, and they're your mates, and they look similar to you, and they're a similar sort of body type to you, or whatever, I'm going to go to that.
Yeah. Because
you feel part of the club, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about weight loss then. And it's not about improving your health or getting better in your mindset or improving your confidence. I'm just going because my mates are going.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely that aspect in it, because and I'm talking, if it doesn't sound like it's changed, but I went to them up in Newcastle years and years and years ago, and yes, there was a weighing scale there, and you were named and ashamed if you put on weight. It's like, wow, what the hell is going on? This is ridiculous.
Mm.
But what worries me now, and if this is controversial, I'm kind of a controversial person. The government are actually recommending Weight Watchers. So it's now these people are now being seen as trusted people to go to lose weight, and which really scares the hell out of me, because if you go down that route, the low fat, whatever, even the products that they sell, just looking at I say ingredients, looking at the chemicals that are in them, the mind boggles. It really, really does.
100%, mate. 100%. So in the expert words of Margaret Bell, in the sort of expertise, if I'm looking to lose weight, improve my health, improve my confidence, get myself in a better place? What are the sort of big wins I can get right now, in your opinion? Or what are the not the big wins? What are the short term things I can do to get some big wins?
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, everyone's needing to be peeled off the ceiling when it comes to stress. That might be a bit of an exaggeration for some, but I think for quite a lot of people, stress is a huge thing. And I know people say stress and stress again, but the effect that has on the body, the effect that has on the mind, the effect that has on your hormones and gut health is absolutely huge. And I don't think people can actually grasp that fact. The fact that as well that being stressed out means that any food you eat doesn't get to where it needs to be. It turns into fat. Hopefully that will blow a few people's minds, but yeah, even down to that aspect, that if you're stressed, your food doesn't get to where it needs to be. That should be a huge, big sign for people. So finding ways to reduce your stress, whatever works for you, and what I would say, obviously not alcohol or smoking if it's all possible, but trying to find more natural outlets of reducing that stress first and foremost is huge. If you are stressed, no doubt your gut will actually be not in its best state. So learning how to repair that to start off with is very important.
Create this sort of,
and having to repair it means different things to different people. Whether your gut lining has split or not, that's something to look at first. Understanding different therapeutic foods that you can eat to then repair the gut, and then actually replenish it before you moving on to manage it. And a lot of people think that your gut health has nothing to do with your actual weight. It's huge, because there's over 90%, well 80% of your hormones are produced in there. And if you think about it, there's hormones that are released when you're hungry to tell you that you're hungry. There's a hormone released to tell you that you're full. If your gut health isn't any good, then those hormones won't be released. And that research is now being seen, which is why certain people are obese, because the hormone, your actual hormone that tells you that you're full, isn't aligned.
Yeah, 100%. 100% me. I love that. Do you know what reduced my stress quite significantly? Going back to core values and beliefs and really clarifying them. And I said at the start about Peter, my old business coach, who put me through the sort of the old Bellbin test and all that. And going back and like filtering out what I live by and what I want to do. And it came back to ownership, and it came back to connection with people, building connection, and it came back to simplicity, actually, not overcomplicating shit.
Yeah.
I know it sounds very simple, but it's meant to be, right? That's one of my values, simplicity. Like, you know, if I'm in a complicated situation, how can I simplify it? If a work-related task is complicated, how can I simplify it? If a client comes into the business, how can I make it simple for them to understand? Because some of the stuff we talk about, gut health, social media, marketing, weight loss, these can be quite complicated topics for people to understand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, getting your mindset right sounds great, but it can be quite tough. It can be quite soul destroying at times. Like I always say, self-development it's great to self-develop. It's like 100%, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It can be quite soul destroying.
Yeah.
And it can be quite eye-opening at times. Like when I mentioned about me becoming, like I score high on extroversion, that was like, wasn't easy for me to hear, because it was like, it broke a belief about myself that I'd had for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's not an easy thing to process sometimes. So these things sound great, and the shiny objects in front of you that you're trying to aim for, but getting to them, I always think it's like Have you ever done a run or have you ever done like a walk or anything, and the finish line looks close, but as you keep going, keeps getting
Gets
further away.
and further, yeah.
That's the comparison I always make with it. But yeah, that's cool. Just circling back a little bit to community.
Mhm.
We roll in the same circles, even though we're passing ships most of the time. I sort of really got to know your stuff through Joel Jellin,
Yeah.
really, which is a mutual friend of ours. How did you get into them circles first of all, and how instrumental is that the Liverpool business scene been in Margaret Bell's progression?
How did I get into that scene to start off with? I met, let's think, Claire Ellis to start off with, who is the founder of Wellness in the City.
Yeah, love Claire. I've had her on the podcast as well.
Yeah. I met her at when she first started Pink Link. Now, I had been doing, as I say, coaching on the side, as it were. And she had a similar experience, not exactly the same, but her mum passed away around about the same time as well, which was really quite, just getting goosebumps and shivers about it now. But our relationship, our friendship started to grow. And I think that she mentioned that she went to a retreat and this idea came. I was actually at that retreat doing the catering, and she let this idea, form, and she came to myself and Claire Morton, who actually ran the retreat, and said, "This is the idea that I have. Shall we start running with it?" And I took a big gulp and went, "Go on then." So Wellness in the City was born really from that, and Claire has always been very much an advocate of meeting people in the right place, matching people up who she think will work together well. But I've known of Joel for quite a long time because one of my best friends has known him for over 20 years, and she kept on saying to me, you need to start speaking to this guy, you need to start speaking to this guy. And eventually we did speak, had a few conversations, and eventually spoke to Claire and said, I think this guy would be a very good guy to bring on board with Wellness in the City as well. And I think from there, really, we just let it be known that this is what this is Claire's baby. This is what wants to happen. This is what we want to do. And relationships just started forming from there. People wanted to get involved. People wanted to understand what it's all about, because Liverpool, let's face it, really blooming needs it. Where Liverpool itself is one of the lowest when it comes to the health of people. And I don't think we're going to be in any kind of situation soon when the NHS is going to be able to help in such a way that it's going to make such a vast difference. Great if you break a bone or something like that, but a lot of other things, the NHS is, unfortunately, I don't feel personally, maybe the place to go.
Yeah. Nice. I met Joel at Move Networking, actually.
Yeah.
In Sefton Park. And we just kind of had a very brief conversation, maybe like a couple of minutes. And then went through some restructuring in the business in the last year, and then start like a literally New Year's resolution. I said, I'm posting something every day. Like, I'm just going to put something out every day. No 0 days. Just kind of get something out every day. And then he messaged me out the blue. And obviously I'd seen him passing and stuff. And he was like, introducing me to all these people, bringing me to places, WhatsApping me most days. Like, have you spoke to this guy? And I was like, this guy must be the most well-connected guy I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, definitely the most well-connected guy in Liverpool. And I can't actually speak highly enough of him, to be fair, because he has done so much in terms of just like recommending people to me, but so much in terms of just being a soundboard, really. And can't recommend him highly enough, to be fair. So I will link Joel around this video because he'll probably watch this, to be fair.
I'm pretty sure he will. But yeah, as far as I know from a conversation that I had with Joel, and hopefully he won't mind me mentioning this, he's been wanting to do something or be involved in something like wellness in the city for, I'm sure he said about 20 years. I might have got that wrong, Joel, if I have, sorry. But he's like, Liverpool definitely needs this. Manchester in itself seems to be just that little bit further forward when it comes to it. So Liverpool really needs to catch up and really needs to understand that people's mental health, physical health, emotional health are key. And it's key to have those in a good state when it comes to, your workforce. Because without that, you're not going to get what you need out of your team.
100%. Like, I have some sort of like counterintuitive views on this stuff as well, because there's a lot of talk nowadays around we need to talk more and we need to be more open and transparent and all this stuff. And I'm really fascinated by the wellness industry these days, especially locally to us. But what we need to do, because when we look in the workplace, if you read Instagram or you read the news or watch anything these days, it's always like, we need equality, we need, more women in workplaces, we need to improve all these areas, which is factual, right? Like, no one's arguing that. But I think what like one thing that we can do straight away, which is like actually a tangible goal, is create equality of opportunity.
Yeah.
Not because we want all these outcomes, right? So it's like, we want women to be paid the same as men. We want men to, like, all that stuff. It's right. Personally, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Personally, I've never came across that in any workplace. I've never known, in all of the work that I've done, I've never known a woman to get paid less than me for doing the same job. I've never known that personally, or I've never come. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and obviously it has happened. But what I have seen is people not getting the same opportunity. So people who might be from a slightly disadvantaged background or starting from a place of disadvantage, a tangible goal is to get everyone on the same opportunity playing field. And I think what that does, it gives people hope. And when they have hope, hope isn't a strategy, but hope can create a strategy, because straight away they're thinking, the opportunity is there for me to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than striving for these outcomes, which can be untangible, right? Like, if I get paid a certain amount of money and then someone with a year's experience comes in and I've been doing it for 20 years, is it right? These outcomes are like very intangible.
Yeah.
Whereas if the government or local governments, whatever, said, right, we're going to give everyone a level playing field to start. I'm going to help people from the ground up to this point. There's your opportunity. You can take it if you want. And I think what that would do is, in the nicest possible way, is eliminate a lot of losers and a lot of like loser mentality.
Yeah.
Because people would go, actually, I'm not the victim anymore. And one thing I can't stand is blame culture. I can't stand it. Like, that's why one of the things is ownership. Like when I hear people blaming someone else, all you're doing is giving people the power over yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. So anyway, that's a bit of a side thing that I can go on a rant about all day long. Anyway, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
I've been so interested and so keen to get you on the podcast, and it's been amazing, to be fair. Like, I've really enjoyed that. If someone in my audience wants to find you and get involved with what you do or find out a bit more, where can they find you? What are the best places to get in touch with you, or what are your platforms? And what I'll do is I'll link them around this video when it goes up.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Put on my name, should come up. I wish. I'm gonna. Thought of being there that I should have. Like, don't think Deepal would have that. Also Instagram, Gut Feeling with Margaret Bell, and my website is just simply my name now, margaretbell.co.uk. Go now, just my name, no company name, just me.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for your time.
No problem.
Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been really enjoyable.